So, this week in class, we discussed volume. No, not that kind. This kind. The kind that goes in here. Or maybe even in here. Or in simpler terms, the kind of volume that is the measurement of how much stuff fits into something. Now, let's review the steps in the process to finding volume. Step 1 is to identify the relevant dimensions of the object for which you are trying to find the volume. For a cube, those relevant dimensions are height, depth, and length. For cylinders, the relevant dimensions are the radius of the end of the cylinder and the height. Once you've been able to determine these dimensions, you can then move on to step 2. Step 2 is building the equation. In the cube, the equation would look something like this. The height multiplied by the depth multiplied by the length. And for a cylinder, the equation would look like this. Pi multiplied by the radius squared, where we've seen this equation before, multiplied by the height. One way to think about volume is that you're finding the surface area for one of the object's surfaces and then multiplying that surface area by the depth or height depending on which way the object is orientated. The final step is to solve for the volume. Let's add some values to the dimensions of this cube. Let's say it has a height of 4 feet, a depth of 3 feet, and a length of 12 feet. Now, we enter all the values into the equation we've just built and solve for the volume. Remember, volume is always labeled in units cubed. In this case, it's feet cubed. Sometimes, as I'll show you in my homework assignment example, the units are not going to be constant. In order to solve the equation, you must first convert all the values to be similar units of measurement. And now, for your homework assignment. I would like for you to find an object in your house. Draw a quick sketch of it, find the relevant dimensions and label them on your sketch, and then find the volume. Of course, showing your work the whole way. Then, when you're all done, take a picture of that object and include it in your assignment. Here's my example. This summer, I built some raised beds in my garden. I needed to know how much soil to buy to fill up the beds. Let's take a look at how I solved this problem. First, started out with a sketch of the raised beds, and we wanted to find out how much volume. Then, I asked the question, how much soil do I need? Then I measured and labeled the relevant dimensions on my sketch. My raised beds had a width of 4 feet, a height of 8 inches, and a length of 8 feet. Now, I build the equation. Since my raised beds are essentially cubes, I'm going to use that equation. I enter each of our values into the equation. As you can see here, my dimensions are not in similar units. Soil and other landscaping materials are sold in cubic yards. Since I already need to convert my units to a common unit, I might as well convert all my dimensions to yards. Here's how I'm going to do that. Since there are 3 feet in a yard, my two dimensions that are in feet will be divided by 3. And since there's 36 inches in a yard, my dimensions in inches will be divided by 36. This will give me each dimension represented in a common unit. Now I can solve for the volume, which in this case is 0.78 cubic yards, or just over 3/4 of a cubic yard. So now I know how much soil I need to fill my beds. And finally, here's a photo of my object, and since I built 2, I needed to buy approximately 1.5 cubic yards of soil to fill my raised beds.